Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franzen here, co-host for this show where we feature top restaurateurs, investors, and business leaders. This is part of our SpotOn Series. SpotOn has the best-in-class payment platform for retail, and they have a flagship solution called SpotOn Restaurant where they combine marketing, software, and payments all in one. They've served everyone from larger chains like Dairy Queen and Subway to small mom and pop restaurants. To learn more, go to SpotOn.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses to get ROI, clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build a great relationship with clients, referral partners, and thought leaders in your space, there's no better way to do it than through podcasts and content marketing. To learn more, go to rise25media.com or support@rise25media.com. Lauren Coulter is owner and director of franchise sales and development at Biscuit Belly, with 3 locations in Louisville, Kentucky, and 1 in Evansville, Indiana. She's a pharmacist turned restaurateur. After she graduated from pharmacy school, she and her husband, Chad Coulter, opened Louisville's first paint and sip businesses. In 2014, they shifted into the restaurant scene by opening Louvino, a Southern-inspired small plates and wine bar restaurant. They grew Louvino to 5 locations in Louisville, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati before opening the first Biscuit Belly location in May of 2019. The Coulters are currently targeting 4 to 5 additional corporate locations and at least 25 franchise locations in development by the end of 2021. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so did you earn a Doctor of Pharmacy?
Yes.
Wow. So what made you decide to pursue that, to not pursue that as your career after you graduated?
I know. I mean, I did work in pharmacy for many years. We both Chad and I are pharmacists by training. And we both worked in the field of pharmacy for a number of years. Chad fewer than I, because he kind of slowly stepped out a lot quicker than I did to pursue these other avenues of just what we were going to do. And I don't think, I often look back and there was never a time when we were both like, pharmacy stinks, we want to get out, we want to find something new. But I think as opportunities just became available for us to find new things that we love, we decided to take them. So it's been good for us. Pharmacy, though, has changed and shifted a lot, even in the last, I graduated in 2000. So even in the last 13, 14 years since I was really involved there. And I will say that more and more of my pharmacy friends are messaging me like, I want to get out. How do I get out? So healthcare is just a little different these days.
Sure. I would imagine, any doctoral degree or doctorate or something like that is difficult. Has that degree or the difficulty of earning that kind of degree helped you in the business world or in the restaurant industry?
I do think that you have to be extremely disciplined, and I think from a work ethic perspective, definitely prepared us for, the business side of things a bit. Just being able to project manage a number of things, have multiple things on our plate and see them through, I think has definitely been helpful. Having that background, having that time spent many, many years in school. I wish I could get some of the dollars back, but, it gave us. And then, I don't take for granted the fact that having those degrees for the first couple of years gave us the primary incomes to be able to, save up some cash and try some new things. So it was okay for us to fail. We have, great fallback options. So I don't take that lightly either. So
your first kind of venture into entrepreneurship was in paint and sip. Can you tell me what kind of led up to that?
Well, and don't take it, I'm not saying this negatively. Some of the pictures that you have in your background, I'm like, oh, one of those looks like one that we offered.
It probably are. My wife does the paint and sip stuff all the time. They're her paintings.
Exactly. So we here in Louisville, there just wasn't anything like that. And we just saw it as a fun opportunity. I think we were really appreciative of offering something that had an experience around it. It wasn't necessarily, just food, but, something to do with your friends. I think people are often looking for that. So yes, I think every house in Louisville had to have 2 or 3 fleur-de-lis, hanging from them that they would come in and do. But it really took off here. It did well. And after, 2.5 years, we saw it though as probably what is, somewhat of a fad. And so we decided to sell it and was able to do that just at a really good time, kind of a good high for us after about 3 years. So we shifted those dollars into Louvino, which is a very wine-focused restaurant. We had 60 to 70 wines by the glass and wanted it to just be a very fun, educational, but approachable place to have good wine. Here in Louisville, everything is bourbon and, somewhat craft beersy, but to get a decent bottle of wine, you'd have to go to a fancy steakhouse and commit, a couple $100. And so what our option was being able to get some of those fancy wines by the glass. And so that's kind of what set us apart here. We grew that, like I stated, or like you stated in the intro, to 5 locations. But once we opened up Biscuit Belly, I think, things definitely shifted a bit in our brains. We saw the opportunity for something that was a bit easier to rinse and repeat. Also, just contrasting the breakfast, brunch, lunch hours as compared to a nighttime concept. We were, pleasantly surprised at kind of the simplicity of that. For the first time, my husband could sit at dinner with us and not be, attached to his phone or things like that. So once we rolled out the second Biscuit Belly, we really realized we have something special on our hands. And at that point, began to dig into going down the franchising path. Also began looking at opportunities to sell Louvino, which we ultimately did last December. So almost a year now that it's been sold to a great group, and just really put all of our eggs in these, in this Biscuit Belly basket, if you will.
Sure. Did you or your husband have prior, you mentioned you were both pharmacists. Did either one of you have prior restaurant experience prior to Louvino?
I worked in a little chicken place, kind of the predecessor to Zaxby's. It's called Guthrie's. They're still a thing. I think they've now started refranchising. But I worked there when I was in high school. But I don't think Chad ever worked in food service. Our first time working at a real restaurant was literally the night that we opened. So it was a learning curve.
Sure.
We learned a lot, but restaurant people are some of the best people, I think, on the planet. And so it was easy to adapt, to kind of work with them and learn a lot. And I love kind of that evolution piece of, my husband's the first couple nights on the dish machine, working harder than he's ever worked in his life, or dealing with a plumbing issue at our old building and things like that. So that's where we are.
I've heard. Well, you already had some entrepreneurship experience with the paint and sip, yeah. But I've heard, stories from restaurateurs about this is, a lot of things are different than maybe you would have expected. Was there any kind of oh my God, moments where you were kind of didn't expect this to come up?
I think just that whole kind of having to be on all the time. Mm-hmm. There's not, and we're so lucky. We always had, I think one thing I was shocked about, I went into it probably thinking a bit negatively about not the people, but about maybe their expectations. Always thought that we would have a whole lot of turnover and have a lot of people issues, but we never really experienced that. Even now, some of the people who are, managing stores started with us at that first store. Mm-hmm. So being able to really grow and develop people, I thought was a lot cooler than I ever thought it would be. I thought it would just kind of be a rotating door. But we offered, I think, a good team that we gave, autonomy to, we hired people who did things well and we let them do those things. And then I think just our our concept lends itself to having more of a committed, lifer type of employee. And so that was a lot of fun. It's very different at Biscuit Belly, where, at Louvino, we worked with chefs that were very creative, and half of our menu was consistent at all the stores, but the other half was unique to the area or the season. And so in Biscuit Belly, we've actually struggled because it's much more rinse and repeat. We need somebody who can come in and follow a recipe. And we brought some people from Louvino over to open our Biscuit Belly locations, the chefs specifically. And they had a really hard time because there wasn't any way for them to have that creative outlet. And so, we walk in one day and there's like 19 jams, all different types being made. And we're like, we have one jam, just one. So I think we've learned a lot in that sense since we've transitioned to more of this fast casual style.
Mm-hmm. So if you could just tell me a little bit more about Biscuit Belly, what can a customer expect when they go there?
Oh, yes. Biscuit Belly, we really focus on the big, hearty Southern style biscuits. So we have, a big, buttery, flaky biscuit with a piece of fried chicken and topped with an over easy egg and 2 pieces of delicious bacon, and then all topped with our signature Geta gravy. Comes out to you. We have the mindset that the phone eats first, or your eyes eat first. So as that biscuit is being delivered, people are staring at their food. It gets dropped in front of them. Often they're pulling out their phones, snapping pictures, posting on social media around where they are and what they're eating. We really, even though we are a fast casual concept, we level up the experience from a surroundings perspective. The aesthetic is a lot of white subway tile and blues and yellows. So supposed to be calming yet energetic and fun. We also level up the experience by offering more of a full service fast casual concept. So you order at the counter and sit down, but then we bring your drinks out, we bring your food out, and we clean up after you. So we try to table touch, talk to people as much as possible, make sure they enjoy themselves. If they, for some reason, don't like something or something is not up to their expectations, if it doesn't meet their expectations, we want to make it right. And I think that it's been really fun to, even in this segment, so in the fast casual, in the breakfast scene, we have gotten these people who are really bought into the brand and bought into the culture, and they want every, table to leave having had the best experience. And so they're going to do what it takes to make things right. And I love that. The food is excellent. Our menu was designed primarily by Tavis Rockwell, who is also the head culinary director for Louvino. So he helped create the menu. We have a couple throws to him. We have a Rockwell and Rockwell Supreme named in honor of him. And so that's just really special, knowing that, we met Tavis for a beer 8 years ago, and to see kind of where it's come to now is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what were the early days like for Biscuit Belly as you were transitioning from Louvino to, the breakfast business? I
think, we were so used to being able to be not creative, because I feel like we are creative, but to have a fair amount of flexibility. And so, like I said, the transition into something that's a little more rinse and repeaty has been more difficult, I think, than I anticipated. It's been easier in the sense that we don't have 5 different menus that we're redoing every, 12 to 18 weeks, but it's still a lot. So when you're looking at processes and making sure systems are consistent, making sure experiences, the biscuit that you're going to taste at one store is going to be exactly the same biscuit that you taste at another store, that's pretty tough. So in addition to the experience that we want the customer to get, we want every piece of food to taste consistent everywhere. And so having to work through a lot of that has been challenging. Also, obviously with COVID and all the kind of ups and downs that the last 18 months have brought, We've learned a lot, but I think the one perk to it has been that it gave us the time and the bandwidth to be able to roll out the franchising side really, really well. So prior to COVID, we were thinking about franchising, but had just kind of started down the path. And if you know anyone who is an early stage franchisor, they can tell you it's a lot of work, a lot of legal documentation that has to be done, and systemizing and marketing efforts that are totally different. Who you're marketing for a franchisee is a totally different skill set than what you're marketing for a just a customer. So all these different things that you have to do a lot of work and pay a lot of time and attention to detail to do it right. And so the one perk to COVID is that it gave us the bandwidth to be able to do that. And I think that now we are reaping the rewards of how much work we put into it before we started. I now kind of giggle when I hear people that say, well, I wasn't planning on franchising, but these people wanted to franchise, so I just drew up the paperwork to do one. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're nuts. Because it's so much work. To not go into it with that mindset of, we're going to win at this and we're going to go far with this is just crazy. With Louvino, it was a lot of, let's just see what happens. Let's just see where this takes us. A lot of just, good ideas. Let's try this and that. Whereas with Biscuit Belly, I feel like we've been a lot more strategically minded and really figured out, okay, let's not figure out what works for 3 stores. Let's think about what's going to work for 30 or 300 stores. Let's go ahead and start putting in those systems now so that we can, hopefully have fewer pain points in the future. So I feel like we've really leveled up that experience. And the way that we're seeing the fruits of that labor is as we've had potential franchisees come in for discovery days or, see our team and see our processes, they've really been impressed by all the work that we've done. And, every one of them have said that we're further ahead than many concepts who have, 50 or 60 units just because we're already thinking with that mindset, that growth mindset. So, I think that's.
How did the idea or the vision for Biscuit Belly come about when I'm sure you're pretty busy, when you were pretty busy doing Louvino?
Yeah, this is funny. People do not believe me, but our chefs can attest to this. The first, maybe the second weekend that we opened up Louvino, our first one, we bought the building and we were in half of it, and we were trying to figure out what to do with the other half. We could lease it out or, should we do something else too? And a couple of our chefs and Chad were like, we should open a biscuit place. Now we're from Georgia originally. So having, biscuits at the corner, gas station is very normal there, but here, not so much. If I walk in, a number of gas stations, like I'm not going to go and try to get a bacon, egg, and cheese, but that's very common where we're from. So I kept saying to my husband, you're crazy. This would do well and that does well in Georgia. It's not really going to do well here. Time goes by and we start seeing the emergence of some of these other concepts. So out of Nashville, there's like Biscuit Love, maybe. Asheville, I think, has Biscuit Head. We went to Oregon for a trip, and there was a place called Pine State Biscuits, I think, was there. So of course my husband's like, see, and I'm just kind of shaking my head like, all right, you're right. And so when we were initially thinking about it, we knew, okay, we're going to do this a different way than Louvino. And we spent a lot of time doing, branding and looking at colors and what is our name going to be and figuring all of those points out so that, again, when we opened, we were kind of good to go. So just a lot of time and attention to detail on those fronts was really key.
How did you know what kind of so you've got the first one open? When did you know, like, okay, this is going to work, and then maybe it was time to expand?
Yeah, we did the first one in May of 2019, and pretty quickly it was just like what you see on TV, lines around the block. And I remember driving to or by a Hattie B's in Nashville one time. And I think it was Hattie B's, and seeing this line, down the block in the rain, and me thinking, I would never stand outside, for an hour and a half for some fried chicken. Like, I didn't get it. And that's what we started seeing. These people were standing in line. Now, our line moves a lot faster than an hour, than anything that would be an hour and a half. But getting people in, getting them fed, they leave very full. And they were just generally happy and excited. So we were able to open a second store in December. And I think that still seeing that level of excitement at both those locations just gave us this like, wow, we've got something special here on our hands. And I'm not going to name names, but when we've gone to other similar concepts, I feel like our experience is just hand over fist better than so many out there. I feel like our product is better, but also just that experience of people coming in, really enjoying what they're having, and having a great time. That's what we offer that maybe you don't get at some of these other similar breakfast concepts.
So then you've expanded some of the location and other locations, and then I talked about your franchising in your introduction. You're the director of franchise development for Biscuit Belly. You talked a little bit about franchising. Can you tell me maybe what you're looking for and some of your goals in terms of franchising?
Oh yeah, we're really at this juncture trying to attract a franchisee who is already in the multi-unit restaurant game. People who they know what they're doing, they're experts in their own right, and that we can, be partners as just this early on in this brand. We think it's really important to establish a partnership with people who know ins and outs, who have tried other things, who know what works and what doesn't, and who can help really be a resource for us. So our first group is in 30 KFCs and 10, 12 Long John Silvers. Our second group is in probably 8 to 10 different franchise restaurant concepts. They own the markets where they are, but they it's awesome because we learn so much from them, and they're so willing to lend a listening ear, tell us what they've done in the past, tell us what franchisors have done successfully and what has, failed. And so we're learning a lot from them at this point. Again, and same, our third and fourth groups, multi-unit restaurant franchisees already. We hope, in the next 12, 18 months to get to a place where we can say with good feeling that we can bring on somebody who's never been in the restaurant industry before. But I think just being, at this juncture, we didn't want that to be a hurdle that we would have to teach at this point.
Mm-hmm. So, you talked about lines out the door. For someone who is a good franchisee candidate, what makes Biscuit Belly a good investment?
I mean, our unit economics are solid. And I think if when we got into our second site, it was previously a Zoe's, and we're, converted this Zoe's. And so in the restaurant space, you can see price tags of $2.5 million, $3 million, to get into a space. And we're nowhere near that. Restaurants are innately expensive. Restaurant equipment is expensive, but that return on investment, you can get a good bit quicker with us than you can with other concepts. And I think too, at this point, being a part of something that's new and exciting definitely has its perks. So, where we're sitting right now, we've got stores in Tennessee and Alabama and in Georgia. And so there's a lot of real estate, still left and still available. And we just really believe that if we can give these first couple of groups the best experience, that all it takes is for them to call up some of their, KFC buddies or five guys friends, and say, hey, I got this great concept, you should do it. And we're kind of off to the races. So from a goals perspective, our goal for this year was to do 3 to 5 deals, each doing 3 to 5 stores. So we've done 4 of those deals, and we're at 20 stores in development. Based, from COVID and everything that's kind of come from that, what we're dealing with, and I know what a lot of people are dealing with, is finding the real estate. So we've done these development agreements with a couple of people, but we would rather people get in the right spaces than just open stores. So we're working with a group out of Chicago to help us really identify what those locations are, and just building out from there. So I think initially when we went into it, our goal was whatever we did this year to double that, to have double the number of stores in development next year. And I think that that's a reasonable goal, but we just did strategic planning last week. And so much of what we're focused on is making sure these people open well, have great experiences, so that then they have something, to call and make that referral for.
How did you guys survive? COVID had a pretty big effect on the restaurant industry. How did you guys survive through it?
I mean, it was tough. Here in Kentucky, things were pretty shut down for a long time. And then when they would start to open back up, it was like 25% and then 33% and then 50%. And then we went back down and back up. And it just always kind of felt like this roller coaster. And there was never good, solid information given at all times. And actually, even over Thanksgiving, we did Thanksgiving Day stuff, and then made myself available to be able to work on that Sunday after Thanksgiving, just thinking it would be chaos. And got there, and it was busy, but it wasn't just psycho crazy. And I said, I'm gonna look and see what we did last year. And the GM at that store reminded me, she said, Lauren, we were re-shut down last year at Thanksgiving. And I had totally, probably just mentally blocked it out of my mind, that we were shut back down from like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving till mid-December. And so it's been a whirlwind of a lot of, just all different information. I think the most frustrating thing was often feeling like business owners, particularly small business owners, were kind of put in the middle and having to, play this good cop, bad cop, gotcha, don't gotcha sort of thing. And I never particularly liked that. But I know, our team was amazing and really worked hard and came together and, did what they had to do to make sure everybody was comfortable. Making sure everybody stayed safe was definitely the highest priority for all of us. I think, we had to make some tough decisions when this all first came down and we were shut down and we didn't know what happened. So had to really close things down and then strategically open back up as the volume kind of permitted. I think what we're seeing now is still we're at 28 to 32% takeout still. But when we are looking at our comps, 2020 is a bust, but when we're looking at it, we're comparing it to 2019 and we're up. So that is at least positive in my eyes that, okay, what we're hoping that we comp same in store and then increase that 20% would be great, but for takeout. But we're dealing with a lot of what everybody's dealing with, supply chain and the cost of bacon and chicken and all of these things have definitely played a part. And so navigating all of this has been trying. And my poor husband has been, every day just absorbing as much information as he can or as he could, especially during those first couple of months with PPP. And I think we were able to do some cool things for our staff once we got the PPP to kind of validate it, and reward some people who were worked really hard and stuck in there that whole time. But it's not been easy.
I would imagine. So what is it about the restaurant industry that you find particularly enjoyable, maybe even compared to pharmacy and running paint and sips?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've always been the type of person, when I worked retail pharmacy, there's something to me that's special. I'm a type A checklist person. I get a lot of joy out of, okay, checking these things off. And I feel like in restaurant world, it's similar to retail pharmacy in that, you always have a rush, that you work through it, you kind of come together, you do what you got to do to achieve, the best outcomes that you can. And so that familiarity to me of all of us coming together and just working super hard and then being able to check off like all of these people had a good experience. And I think that's probably the most similar. Same in the paint and sip thing. They left with a painting. That was the checkbox that was checked off. So all of that, I think, has been good for me, and why I think I kind of enjoy it and thrive in this industry.
I have one last question for you,
Yeah.
but first, how can people find out more information about Biscuit Belly and about becoming a franchisee?
Biscuit Belly, we have got an amazing Instagram. If anybody is on Instagram, Biscuit Belly Biscuits. We have our consumer site is actually, we're giving the final checks on a brand new consumer site. So depending on when this goes live, there will either be a brand new, amazing, just sick site out there, but it's just biscuitbelly.com. And then from a franchising perspective, biscuitbellyfranchise.com is really where you can find out a lot of information. And people often get on there. I mean, I'm the owner. When they, contact me, I answer my cell phone. So I think just being available has really been cool to meet a number of people. And our biggest source of referrals comes from people who come in and dine with us. So if anybody is around, they often are saying, hey, this would be great in my town. And then they look, and sure enough, we're franchising. So every weekend I usually get a referral or two just based on that.
Okay, wow. So last question for you. What are your favorite books or maybe a podcast that maybe you or your husband have just found valuable, kind of especially through your entrepreneurial adventures?
That's a good question. I read a lot. My husband doesn't read at all.
Oh, really?
We have, I would say from a business perspective, we're, obviously very small, very lean group. And we started this year in February or March using the Traction, the EOS model, book by Gino Wickham. And it has really transformed how we all work together. It's also really helped clarify priorities. So from a hiring perspective, what are we focused on? It's just really been amazing to work through their system and now kind of set us up for success. So that's probably been the most beneficial from a professional perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now from a fun, I love to read. I like historical fiction. I like it all, but I think learning how people, especially during COVID, I think I learned a lot more about empathy and being empathetic towards other people. And I read a couple of books, a wide variety of books. One of my favorites was Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. And it was all about a therapist and kind of the things that she saw in some of her clients. But it definitely gave me an appreciation for more of, all of our feelings and what we're dealing with on the inside, which I think we carry so much of that, to our workspace. And if we can provide a safe space for our employees, I think they'll be more loyal in the long run, and just shows, vulnerability and whatnot. So that would be my personal one, I'd say.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for sharing both of those with us.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren, I really appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much, and best of luck with Biscuit Belly moving forward.
Thank you.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.